Welcome to Sex is Medicine, your number one resource for holistic sex education. I'm Devi Ward Erickson, and I invite you to join me every week for another enriching and powerful conversation about the intersection of sexuality, spirituality, pleasure, and personal growth. Each episode of Sex is Medicine is dedicated to awakening your heart and mind to the true purpose and power of human sexuality. Please join me on this journey of self-discovery as we explore the art of using pleasure as medicine to awaken, heal, and empower every area of your life. Sex is Medicine broadcasts every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific on Contact Talk Radio Network. You can listen to the replay and subscribe to Sex is Medicine on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And now get ready for another episode of Sex is Medicine. Hey everybody, welcome to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Miss Devi Ward Erickson, here with my retinue of highly accomplished and well-trained tantric dakinis. And we are here for another episode of Ask a Sexologist, because that's what we all are. And where we answer the questions that you've been sending us. Thank you for sending us your questions. We very much appreciate it because we love answering them. So we are here to answer some of the questions that you've been sending us over the last 3 to 4 weeks, and hopefully provide you with some incredible insight from our wonderful panel of brilliant queens. So our lovely Sequita is not joining us today, so we miss her. Bye, Sequita, we love you, but she'll be back next time. So I'm just going to dive right in. Well, let's introduce you guys first. Once again, in case our audience, we have new listeners. So up in our upper left-hand corner. So if you guys aren't, if you're in your car listening to the podcast, just imagine this. Go to the YouTube video later, Sex is Medicine on YouTube. And my upper left-hand corner, I have the beautiful Rosie bits. My lower left-hand corner, I have the incredible Lucia Vasquez. And right below me, I have the incredible Karen Craig. So we are your trusted team of sexuality experts, weaving mind and body and spirit and sex. So for our first question, our first question comes from a wonderful gentleman who happens to be a student of our Lama Tashi. His name is Muhammad. He said I could say his name on air. And he's had a couple questions that he's been wondering about for the last little while. So I'll read it out, and it's a very lengthy question. So I'm going to start out like in a couple sections. So the first section is, he's had this question on his mind for well over a decade, and that is on the topic of sexualizing women. Whenever I'm in public and see women, I tend to perv on them, i.e. look at their faces and their butts. I do this quite a lot. It's not a desire or a full stare, like I need them or something, but still a very sexual look. Is this bad? To enjoy the sexuality of other women without their consent, is that sexualizing women? I'm really not sure. I asked Lamatashi, and he said that any action that causes egoic attachment should be refrained from or avoided. I feel like a bit of a creep, though it feels good, so I would really appreciate your view on this. So admiring women, faces, and butts, and who knows what else, while he's out in public. What are your thoughts, team? Should he avoid this at all costs? Should he put a chastity belt around his mind? What do you think?
So I'm going to jump in and just say I'm of two minds with this. And I've had young men and raising a son as well. I've had an experience of this, and then also with myself. And I think there's a difference between objectification and appreciation.
Amen, sister. Yes.
Right? And objectification is part of an ongoing patriarchal society that we're living in that says men have an entitlement to look at women's bodies and to find them sexually attractive and arousing. And they are entitled to be doing that at any time that they want. Appreciation is you see something beautiful. Maybe it's a woman, maybe it's a flower, maybe it's, who knows what, a little child. And you think, wow, I resonate with the beauty, with the aesthetic beauty of that person or that thing. And they're two different things. And I think that's where people need to balance that out inside their own minds. And you can be objectifying your partners, you can be objectifying yourself. Like it's pretty deeply rooted, this idea of objectification in our patriarchal society.
And that brings to mind to me the concept of motivation, because I was thinking about this question last night and I'm like, well, I look at women's butts. They're gorgeous. I look at my butt. I look at every butt I can get an opportunity to look at. I look at, faces. I look at bodies. And for me, it really is like appreciating beauty. I don't know how I could not do that. I'm like, this is a beautiful form and I appreciate it and value and celebrate it. And, may feel an erotic charge from looking at it. And I don't feel guilty about it at all. and so I totally agree with what you're saying, Rosie. It is such an internal kind of dance of subtlety. Is what is our motivation? What is our orientation? Because for me, my life experiences, to me, it's like I'm receiving, not like I have to get something, but I'm just out in the world and I see something beautiful. It's like I walk by my garden. I'm like, oh, my eyes are being nourished by beauty. I'm experiencing eyeball pleasure. My body's making phenolphthaleamine right now. How cool. So for me, it's not something that I have an internal struggle about, but I'm also a yoni owner. I've also been socialized as a woman, and it's definitely more acceptable for us to like celebrate other women and celebrate our own bodies, because it doesn't have that stigma that comes from, living the male dominated society and this power over dynamic.
Well, and I think it's an important differentiation there as well is when you look, you're probably not just looking at that butt. You're probably not just like, oh, that's a butt and I can go jerk off to that butt now. That is the level of entitlement that we've raised men with in this society. You're probably looking and being like, damn, that woman is gorgeous and look at her butt and look at her energy. Like that is the type of, and not to say that men don't have that, many men do as well, but I think that's the difference again between objectification and appreciation. It is definitely, there is an entitlement there. So even if you're getting a sexual charge from looking at somebody, and you're appreciating the whole person plus their butt, right?
Yeah. Not just environment.
I want to put a bag over that person's head and just look at their butt and objectify their butt, which is literally some words that you hear coming out of people's mouths.
Yeah, no, I remember a boy saying that about me when I was younger, that he wanted to put a paper bag over my head, but he liked the rest of my body. So I've been there. Growing up racist in America. There we go. So what are your guys' thoughts in terms of our friend Muhammad receiving pleasure through his eyeballs from seeing beautiful humans?
I think it's interesting his use of the word bad. Is this bad? So kind of wondering, is that cultural conditioning, social conditioning, religious conditioning, that somehow appreciating a woman's sexuality? I mean, not just, and all of her. But in a sexual sense is that bad? Is that wrong? Is that shameful? So I'm wondering, like, what is his connection to shame, to being shamed, being bad, for appreciating that? And then also just his self-connection. Because if he's connecting with his entire self, he's, we talk about, connecting with his face and his body and his entire being. And then even the concepts of pleasure, like seeing pleasure in a more holistic, a more expanded perspective, spiritual pleasure, sexual pleasure, physical pleasure, emotional pleasure. If he's got kind of an expanded view, then he's probably doing what Rosie said. He's probably appreciating all of who she is. Yes. But if his view is very narrow, he's, like, for example, very embedded in sort of a porn culture where it's just like parts, body parts and connecting to parts, not the whole person, then it's possible that it's, as Rosie said, he's objectifying women. So as you said, Devi, I mean, it really comes down to what's his intention, what's his orientation, and like, what is all of that about, kind of teasing all of that out.
Yeah, thank you for that, Karen. And something that stood out for me is that he says he pervs on them. And I'm like, this is so intricate and like there's so many layers. But what I sense is also this kind of internal struggle of like having a natural appreciation for women and then wanting to be a good guy. So being like, so judging that, like, oh shit, I appreciate this woman. I must be a perv. That makes me, I have sexual desire that makes me wrong. And so I'm going to shove it down with shame. But sexual energy is vital and potent. And every time you shove it down, it builds and then it's going to leak out and come out in pervy ways, right? So I think at the core of this, for me, what I'm hearing is this internal battle over embracing your natural human sexual desire without, like, that's healthy. It's healthy to have sexual desire. In fact, it's a signpost of good health. In Tibetan medicine, having a healthy sexual desire means that you have a healthy body for all intents and purposes. And so this conditioning that we have in this culture that teaches us that this hunger, quite frankly, this very natural hunger is wrong and evil and shameful and causes us to try to suppress it, then it comes out in these really distorted ways. And it's causing all this internal conflict when in its purest form, most undiluted form, it is simply appreciation and a desire for connection. That's what that is in its purest form. What are your thoughts? Lucia?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I definitely agree with what you ladies have stated so far. And I definitely, it has to be the intention for me as well. And also what's happening on the outside. So what is the approach, I guess, is if there's, like if you are staring down at that person and that person can, sense and they can see that you're, literally eyeballing them, whether you can really tell when somebody's, checking you out, and you can see when somebody's looking at your breasts or your butt, and it can be very, it could come off as just as bad as being, catcalling, right?
Yeah.
I totally have been there. I used to, when I didn't have a car at one point, and I used to have to walk to catch the train, the BART station here in California. I used to have to walk from my house about maybe like 13-minute walk. And I literally had to walk with my head down because I didn't want to be harassed by all the eyeballs looking at me. Yep. Because they don't say anything. They just stare at you and they don't say anything. Every once in a while, I had a gentleman who would compliment, and that was perfectly fine. And I appreciated him for it. He just, came up and said, you look so beautiful. You should smile today. I hope you have a great day. And, that's very much, appreciated. But when it comes to, just staring and not saying anything, then I kind of think, that's now a violation of my consent to me, because, you are not making me feel very good.
Yeah.
So if the person is, if they're not doing those kinds of things and their intentions are for good purposes, then that would, be good for me. Or perhaps if they are looking or they are making it noticeable and they didn't even know it, but now they are aware of it, then perhaps just coming out and saying, something of that sort, to make sure that they're letting that person know that they're not attacking them in any way, and that, they're not freaking them out.
Well, yeah, intruding on them and creeping on them. And I feel I totally know what you're saying, because me too, like most of my, young adult life, it was like, especially in Detroit, it was like, don't look anyone in the eye, because it was perceived as an invitation, right? And so you can absolutely feel when someone is projecting their sexual desire onto you energetically, it's an assault. You can feel that, right? What I was getting from what Muhammad shared is that I think he says that, it's not a desirable stare like I need them or something, but it's still a very sexual look. Well, I'm, again, breaking this down, what is a very sexual look? Is it just that you're experiencing enjoyment? Is it just that you feel aroused? Is it just that you're appreciating? Is that what makes it sexual? So I'm interested, Muhammad, in you kind of teasing out the difference between appreciation and healthy desire and healthy attraction versus a distorted predatory type of energy. So I think that I get the sense that you can sense that, and just like trying to distinguish, make that differentiation inside yourself. The other thing that I thought of on this topic is really, because Muhammad, you are trained in, you're Lama Tashi student, so you're trained in Buddhism. Anytime you notice that you're doing that, you're appreciating or checking a woman out, put your attention on your heart center and feel compassion for yourself and for her. And send the energy of compassion. If you're going to send any energy, send compassion. Connect with her through your heart, because that's what we all want. Ultimately, we all want connection. We want heart connection, whether that includes sex or not. So when you find yourself in a position, I would invite you to, when you find yourself in a position where you're checking a woman out or appreciating her beauty, or you don't know if you're perving or not, put your attention on your heart center. See a white sphere of light there, which is your space element, and just think loving kindness and compassion, intend that would be a way to help purify that if there's any malfeasance in there.
Well, and I was going to say, as well around Buddhism is remembering that everyone is our mother.
Yes.
Right? So you can have, and little children are absolutely in love with their mothers. Their mothers are everything. They are gorgeous. They fill all a child's sensual need, right? And when you look at a woman and you're feeling that like excitement, and this is for anybody of any gender, feeling that excitement, the difference between, I think, voyeurism, which is going to feel really uncomfortable on the other side, having somebody just look at you as a thing, and deep appreciation is that little bit of remembering that every person is our mother.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I love that. So going on, he's asking, is fantasizing about a woman that may not like you in that way bad? Or getting an erection from seeing a woman in public, would that be inappropriate? It seems like a real moral minefield, and I'm not sure what to trust, the bodily sensations or some greater moral responsibility. So I'm going to quickly say, getting an erection from seeing a woman in public, I mean, if you have that much control over your autonomic nervous system, then you should be able to orgasm without ejaculating. I'm just going to say that, and have multiple orgasms. I don't know that you could actually control your erectile function, my friend. So it's kind of like seeing food and salivating. Right? Can you control your salivary glands to the point where your mouth isn't going to water when you're really hungry and you want some food? Maybe that's not the best analogy, but I want to bring it back to sexual desire is an appetite. It's just like we get hungry for food. We get hungry for sex. There's nothing wrong with eating. There's nothing wrong with sex. Let's be clear about that. And in terms of fantasizing about a woman who may not like you that way, is that bad? I've had several men. I'm so interested to hear what you guys think on this, because I've had several men ask me this question, like, is it bad to fantasize about a woman that I may know, or, someone that I find attractive while I'm masturbating? And I think I've got a really unpopular opinion, because from my point of view, I'm like, I can't control what's happening in your mind. So I've straight up had dudes say, like, is it okay if I think of you when I masturbate? And I'm like, I don't, that's not my fucking business. Like, I don't consider it my business what you do, what thoughts you think. Like, that's not my business. And when you're masturbating, that's not my business. I'm not in your head and I'm not there with you. Some other people I've spoken with have very strong opinions, because there is an energetic, when your thoughts projection and blah, 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 that's just not the world that I live in. If you want to think about me when you masturbate, more power to you. Like, I don't have control over your headspace, nor do I want to have control over your headspace. And I don't want you in my head when I'm masturbating. I don't want you knowing what I'm fantasizing about. It's not your business. So what do you... So what do you guys think?
I mean, I guess from my perspective, part of the question is, like, is that what he needs in order to become aroused, like to think of someone or have that kind of fantasy, as opposed to really being fully present in his body, where he's able to connect with his own body, his own sensations? Where is he in terms of his pleasure? Is he, this is a 10? Is it a 5? Is he needing something external to become aroused? Mm-hmm. So, I'm kind of curious in his case, like, kind of what all is going on there. Does he have a primary partner? Does he have a partner? And is this, kind of something that he's doing outside or apart from that relationship? Mm-hmm. Or is he having challenges connecting with real women in real time, so to speak? So, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what all is going on there. Yeah.
Under the surface. Exactly. There's a lot of stuff under the surface. We need a coaching session with you, Muhammad. I think this is more than just a sex is medicine episode, my friend.
Next episode.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. And just to me, it sounds like there's some kind of an attachment there with something going on, with the fantasies. It could even be some form of an addiction, right? And so, perhaps just taking the time to explore yourself more, to be able to connect with yourself, so that you can, this person can cultivate being more present and aware within their own body and start to, let that go so that he can be more present and see what else is going to be able to, how's he going to make himself, let go of that piece. Mm-hmm. And that definitely, I would say, I experienced, some form of that before too. Because I know before I did any kind of tantric work at all, there were fantasies that I, when I didn't have any kind of a partner, I did have to use some kind of, fantasies of to be able to, self-cultivate or masturbate myself. And once I started learning about my body, and just kind of bringing it back to the pleasures of the touch, right? And just the touch and the massaging and just being present. So yeah, I would encourage this person to get some coaching.
Presence. What are your thoughts, Rosie, on getting an erection when you see a beautiful woman? One, and number two, fantasizing about somebody.
I think you can control that erection. And I think, again, it's about what's going on with that. Are you allowing, because there's lots of professionals who come into contact with, thinking about, like, I have a massage therapist, and me and a bunch of my very hot girlfriends go see him. And that dude is super professional, right? So there are ways, and it's like, are you feeling that slight arousal and some blood flow into the penis, and then you're like, okay, this is not an appropriate time to be getting an erection. I'm going to have a few breaths. I'm going to step away. Or are you, like, in a voyeuristic type way, getting that full arousal from that situation that other person is actually not involved in? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would be curious about. Mm-hmm. And then as far as the fantasizing, I'm with you, Davey. I would like, I'm a burlesque performer. People see me naked all the time. I tell them to go bring that to the spank bank and use it for later. Like, yeah. I don't care. And I think fantasies are rich. I think people, when they're self-pleasuring, there are times, and if you're trained, you can start getting into just the pleasure of being your body, but also having fantasies and using your creative mind is a rich, beautiful thing to do as well within sexuality.
I'm totally on board with that. Conceptual pleasure is a form of pleasure, right? And eroticism is part of our humanity. And so that's a question that comes up a lot, which is, can I fantasize in Tantra? And I often say, it depends. Are you using the fantasy to disassociate from your body, or are you using the fantasy to enhance, right? So a lot of people, without training, it's a form of disassociation. And it's, as you described, Lucia, you have to do it in order to get aroused, as opposed to having that connection with our body and our own sensation and our pleasure, and then having this fantasy, this eroticism to kind of take it to the next level. So again, it really depends on where you're coming from. And I also love what you said, Rosie, about like appropriateness in circumstances around erections, right? It isn't always appropriate. And at the same time, I really want to annihilate the shame out of our body's natural responses. Men get erections. That happens. Yeah, I get erections. It's okay for us to feel desire. It's okay for us to feel sensation and aroused in our everyday life. That's a healthy thing. And it's what we do with that arousal. It's what we do with that eroticism that can be harmful or not. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, Muhammad. So wow, look at that. We got through all of it. That's great. Okay, you guys ready for another one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is another juice one. Thank you guys for sending these questions. These are really good questions, and I appreciate having the opportunity to discuss them. So this is the one I saw you on Couples Retreat, VH1 Couples Retreat in the house. Woohoo! I am at the beginning of divorce from my husband, mainly because we've never been passionate, intimate, lustful for each other, but love each other a lot. We have not had penetrative intercourse for over 2 years, and my husband is pretty much over it. He feels intimacy should come natural. And if we have not experienced it within the last 10 years, why would we continue to hold out because we are in our mid-30s and can possibly find someone else to fill those desires? So the question is, do you agree, or can it change with work and dedication? So to summarize, it sounds like you've had a sexless marriage for the last couple of years. You've never, in the 10 years you've been married, felt that spark, so to speak, that passion, that desire, and you're wondering if that spark can be learned. Or if your husband is correct and you should just call it good and go find someone else where that spark is available. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I mean, that's a tough one because I'm not convinced that like chemistry, passion, all that can be created when it was never there.
Right.
If the story was we had it in the beginning and we had a couple of kids and, things haven't been so hot in the last, hot meaning sexually in the last couple of years, then I would say there's something to cultivate. But if you were always just kind of friends and came together for whatever set of reasons, you were young and, you thought that could be created. I don't know if that's the popular view or what, but I'm just not convinced you can create something that didn't exist. I mean, if there was a block there, if that could be dissolved or worked with, like one or both of them was dealing with some issues from prior relationships or issues from childhood or whatever it is, and therefore doesn't have real access to those kinds of emotions. But if they've had them for someone else, but not one another, it's like, well, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I defer to my fellow sexologists.
Thank you. What are your guys' thoughts, Rosie and Lucia, if you want to take a stab?
Well, I do think that desire can be cultivated. But I am with Karen in that if there's not a spark, like I would be curious and say, what brought you two together? Yeah. What did you feel like when you came together? What was your sex like when you came together? Like, has there legitimately never been a sexual spark between the two of you? Mm-hmm. And then, it sounds like the husband's already out.
Yeah.
Right?
He made his choice.
If the husband's already out, then it's a done deal. If the husband was like, oh, I kind of want to explore, you guys could give it a bit of time. You could be like, we're going to see a sexologist. We're going to work on this for the next 6 months. See if we can see if we can actually reintroduce ourselves as different people with different energy, or see if they can individually be doing, because I would also be saying, like, if they were my clients, I would say, I want to see you guys individually.
Yeah.
I want to get you both in touch with your sexuality individually, with creating deep intimacy in yourself. And then let's come together and see what happens. That would be probably my first, line of attack, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Thank you. What are your thoughts, Lucia?
Yeah, I agree with, what you guys have to say. I just would add that, I think there's a lot of missing information. But for me, what it, comes down to is if, I think that anything can be cultivated if the intention is there for both parties. Mm-hmm. So, if the husband is, kind of already made his choice and his mind has set, it doesn't make sense then to try and, cultivate something that if that person's already going to go with an intention of this is not going to happen, then it's probably not going to go anywhere. But if, both parties are coming together and saying, hey, maybe we haven't had, intimacy in however many years, but I'm willing to try because I'm coming from, compassion and love and I want to because I love you, then that's coming in with a different mindset, and it would take some time. But, I just think that it's, I'm agreeing with whatever, you guys have been saying so far.
That ship may have sailed. Yeah, I'm with you all, and with you, Karen, specifically in terms of like, if it's never been there, I don't know that it can be generated. Having been in relationships with people that I was not attracted to, that didn't change. That's why I'm not married to them. There's a reason I'm married to my husband, and it's because he's hot. And I want to eat him for breakfast. So we're not necessarily making love every day, but there's an underlying current of passion and desire for each other, and friendship and love and all that other stuff. And so if you've been really good friends, that's a beautiful relationship, and I can certainly empathize with your husband's desire to have more, to have passion. And I would be curious to know, like, is the passion really not there? Or as you indicated, Rosie, is there stuff blocking it? Right? Is there something in the way? Have you ever felt passion for anyone? Have you felt passion in your own body? Is passion something that you have ever experienced for yourself? Because sometimes, or very often, in many cases, what's in the way are our own blocks, or our traumas and our wounds. And recently, so another Sex is Medicine episode, not recently, a couple of years ago, but recently it came on my radar again, is this conversation about hormonal birth control. And a lot of people don't know that if you were on hormonal birth control from the age of 15, you have no idea what your natural libido is, because your natural hormonal cycle is replaced by chemicals. So you've never actually had an opportunity to mature hormonally, sexually, like mature in terms of your sexual hormones. And that being on the pill does decrease libido. So there's all kinds of factors that we may, not be aware of that are impacting our experience of our own sexuality and our experience of sexuality within our relationship. So I think we need a little bit more info to give you a very clear decision on that. But the consensus is if it really isn't there, you probably can't make it happen. But I'd be curious to know why it wasn't there, and if that's really true. If that's really, really true. So we will table that conversation for now. Sorry, that wasn't a better answer for you, my friend, but we are honest. And so here we go. So let's see here. This is a good one. So I just want to share again how much I appreciate you listeners sending us your questions to connect@authentictantra.com or to any of our panelists. We do enjoy them. And we also got some really good feedback from our last episode regarding anal pegging for men and offering people with penises loving support to explore their anus. It's your anus. You get to do what you want with it. Okay, so along those lines is I'm a cisgender male, and I've always been curious about trying different things and sexual experiences with my wife, but I don't know how to address this with her. I feel she will not be as open as I am because she's made negative comments before when we've seen things come up on TV, like kissing and licking near the anus. So this is another man who wants to explore his anus. Power to you. That's something I'd really like to try. What would be the best approach for something like this? All right. So what are your thoughts? He really wants to explore, expand his sexual horizons, and he wants to start playing with his anus. So how does he broach this to his partner, to his wife, in light of the fact that she's made comments that indicate to him that she might not be too receptive? What are your thoughts?
I think much like the last show that we did on the anal pegging, you're going to bring this up in an environment where you're having sort of a nice time and you can have a sexy talk, not a heated environment, not in the bedroom while you're about to do things. And you're like, hey, how about you just kiss a bit lower, right? Outside of the bedroom. And if you're feeling really insecure, you can book somebody like us and go and get some support in bringing some open communication into your sex life.
Thank you. And what I'm curious about is so what is she saying no to? Right. So maybe it's the licking the mouth near the anus. That's a no for her, but maybe her fingers would be a yes for her. Right. So maybe it's not that she doesn't want to explore anal play. It's that she doesn't want to put her mouth near an anus. And I feel you, sister. I'm with you on that. I'm not going to put my mouth near your anus either. No, that's not going to happen. But my fingers, on the other hand, that may happen. So I would be curious, following Rosie's advice, if you feel comfortable, just having a conversation and being curious about, like, well, what don't you like about that? Is it that the mouth is there? Well, what do you think about fingers? Would you be open to fingers? Or what about a toy? Would you be open to a toy? So then you don't have to forego any anal, exploration whatsoever. It's just you guys are negotiating the terms of your exploration, because some people don't want to put their mouths on buttholes, and that is totally okay. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I've actually, this has come across before in my sessions before. And what I also suggest is to also gather some information, articles as to why that area is a pleasure zone, right? And bring that up when you are communicating with your partner at home, because a lot of times too, I don't know what that person is why they would be making the remarks, as they mentioned before, but it could be simply that they consider it as something that men should not be doing, right? And so I've heard that before come up. And so, just educating then your partner and saying, hey, came across this article, and I've been researching and, while you're talking and, this is the reason why there's, erectile tissue here. And this is why it's a pleasure zone, and just kind of sharing, wants and desires and things, where maybe just, communicating and going over how can we integrate, some more erotic desires into the relationship. Is this something that you're open to? Mm-hmm. And if not, what are some other options that we can, discuss here? Just kind of play with it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And I really think, I'm a big fan of having support for these types of conversations, because when we're talking about sex, underlying our sexuality is our cultural conditioning, our relational wounds, our family stuff, and any traumas we may or may not be aware of. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people and they're like, oh yeah, I haven't experienced any trauma. And then 20 minutes in the conversation, it was like, oh, there was that, right? So there's a lot that we're carrying that we're maybe not cognizant of. And so having these kinds of conversations about wanting to explore beyond, and so one partner being resistant to that, well, there's a reason for that resistance. And the reason for it, may not be something that you can handle on your own. So having, as Rosie suggested, having a coach, this is what we do, a sexologist, whether it's, a certified sexologist like us or, out in the world, there's lots of us floating around there with different orientations, or a marriage and family therapist or sex therapist specifically, to have some support, because it's really difficult to start peeling back the layers on these issues. And if you run into some worms, so to speak, some things to be concerned about, it's an unreasonable expectation that we're going to be able to deal with it ourselves. That's an unreasonable expectation. We need help. We all need help, and we need help to heal. So I really support the idea of getting some external outside support to help you broach this conversation and navigate these waters. Any thoughts you want to add, Karen?
I agree with all three of you. And I think the theme is communication.
Yeah.
So, just as you said, Devi, like having someone to support you in that communication, to help you identify, like, what am I feeling? So for the wife, like, what is her objection? Is it based on, maybe it's based on hygiene, who knows? Maybe it's based on religious conditioning or religious belief systems, or maybe it's, based on, her view of what that means about her husband. Yeah. Maybe things she's heard, that he must be on the down low or something if he's interested in that, like all kinds of things. Like people have all kinds of thoughts around things that we don't know about. So, I agree with Rosie. Also, having the conversation when you're not, like headed to the bed or in bed, it's like, well, how about this? But having a real conversation around, for the man, like, what is he seeking to experience?
Yeah.
Because as you said, I think, Devi, maybe it's sensation in that area or arousal in that area that could be achieved by a toy or a finger and not necessarily a tongue. So, and also, like, where are they even seeing these? Like, when she sees something on TV, pretty sure it's not just like mainline TV.
It's on the Rachel Maddow show. I know exactly. What are you watching where people are licking each other's butt? Can you send us the link?
So, if it is porn, like, what's the context of what she's objecting to or what she's having a visceral reaction to? Maybe it's just the fact that there is no context, it's just, just sex, and, or not even, acting,
Yep.
They're having sex, which is what a lot of porn is. So, again, it does help to have another person to kind of feel these questions, ask the questions, be able to hear what's being said, both from a professional perspective and also because you're just a third party.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, exactly. And having this professional view, like the benefit of us sexologists, I'm not trying to do like a ad here, but just, putting it on awareness is that we're able to hold a non-judgmental space because we understand that human sexuality is healthy. And we also understand that it's varied. And we also understand that it's traumatized and suppressed in the society. So a lot of what we're dealing with in terms of sexuality isn't really sexuality. It's our culture, right? And our culture's relationship to sexuality. So that's a lot of what we have to address in the conversation of sexuality. I do want to say one more thing to you, wonderful sir, is that there is no need for you to wait for your wife to come around. You can pleasure your own anus. And we want to support you in doing that. We do have a video on our YouTube channel about prostate massage for men. I'm sure we also have one on I'm sure it's on our blog too. I just can't remember off the top of my head where it is. But I give you instructions in how to use a crystal dildo, crystal wand, we call it. It's a lucite dildo that is designed for anal stimulation. It's designed for G-spot stimulation, whether that G-spot happens to be in a vagina or the G-spot happens to be in an anus. So I give you step-by-step instructions. It's a 20-minute video. I highly recommend you watch it. It will liberate. many men express this, liberated their lives. So I just want to support you and empower you in claiming your own pleasure for yourself. You don't have to wait for anyone else. And yes, it will be nice when your partner wants to join you in that space, if that occurs. And, you know, you can meet your own needs for exploration on your own. So yeah.
And maybe he'd be willing he could invite her to watch him pleasure himself.
Exactly.
You know? And so she gets an opportunity outside of TV to see what this really looks like with somebody who she loves and watching him arouse himself in that way.
I mean, I'm just saying, Karen, that sounds like a good date night. Sign me up. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so we're doing lots of couples. So here's another one from a man in a 20+ year marriage. My wife and I have been married for 22 years and have 2 children. Congratulations. That's wonderful. During our marriage, there's been cheating on both sides and also some swapping. I'm curious to know if that swapping is consensual swapping, like it's swingers party swapping. We are only monogamous now and trying to heal our marriage and rekindle our sexual passion, but we are still having trouble reconnecting. Is there anything in Tantra that can help us? Oh, this is a Tantra question. All right. Well, what do you guys think? Can Tantra help people reconnect? What has been your experience?
No, came to the wrong place. Sorry.
Tantra is not about connection. It's about avoidance. That's what So you guys want to share? What are some methods that you've seen are really effective for you working with couples or even in your own life as a couple that has helped that emotional connection, that sense of depth and intimacy rekindle and re-arise after there's been maybe a breach of trust?
I mean, I like to recommend to couples, and then also my experience with my own husband is tantric union breathing, because it actually brings the nervous system into synchronicity. So we're like always trying to talk ourselves into connection or even feel ourselves into connection, as opposed to it being like a neurobiological connection. Yeah. And so when we're eye gazing, like literally oxytocin is released in our bodies, which is the bonding chemical. Yeah. You know, our nervous systems, our brain waves are actually syncing up. So you're not trying to, you know, I always call it like cooking in a cold skillet, you know, frying in a cold skillet. I mean, like that's actually what's bringing you into connection. So then when you're having these discussions, you're already synced up and not trying to, you know, have these conversations from being kind of poles apart in terms of just your nervous systems alone.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that tantric union breathing and harmonizing the autonomic nervous system and harmonize our brain waves, like literally being on the same wavelength. That's a literal, tangible effect of doing the tantric union breathing practice as we teach at the Institute. What are your guys' thoughts, Lucia and Rosie? Any thoughts on specific Tantra practices that have supported couples in enhancing that sense of connection?
Yeah, I'll go. I've definitely worked with a few couples, and definitely the union breathing is one of my favorites. But even taking it, you know, breaking that down. So just simple things can have such a huge impact. And so sharing of 3 appreciations with one another on a regular basis has helped to really just learn to show that you really care about that person and a way to honor that person. And, you know, learning how to use please and thank yous is a huge one that definitely starts changing into a more healthier relationship in general. You know, we're always so busy in life with everything that it's these little things that we tend to forget, and we are not even aware of it many times, you know, to use please and thank yous on a constant basis. But when you start learning how to do that, you start, you appreciate that person more, right? So you start to share these appreciations, and in return, you can start feeling that connection. on a deeper level, but also including using another tool such as the 10 spot, right? And including that into your everyday life, where you're, if you're going to eat, if you're setting up for the union breathing, simple things such as asking your partner, are you comfortable enough on your pleasure scale of where it's 10 being the highest, and if not, what is it that you need to make it to be a 10? So it could be something small as like a pillow, that you need to be sitting more comfortably. And so it's little things like that tend to have a really strong, impact in the end.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. What are your thoughts, Rosie?
So I would say I 100% agree with everything that's said. And those are so beautiful. Such beautiful practices. I give the union breathing to all my students. We do it back before when we could breathe together. I'd pair everybody up because it's just so deeply healing. And I think the 3 appreciations too is incredible. And I would say, set up a tantric date once a month.
Yeah.
Right. With 2 kids, it's hard to do once a week or even once in every 10 days. But once a month, make sure that you have that tantric date and then be deeply of service to your partner. And that's what, when we're doing a full tantric date and we're doing like, say, full yoni massage or full lingam massage, we're being of deep, deep service to our partner. We're thinking about everything. We're setting the stage. We're involving all the senses, and we are really giving to them, and in a place of I think, worship. Like when we can be in our highest self, we're in a real place of worship of our partner, of just, how can I bring you pleasure? How can I be of service to you right now? And that is incredibly healing when there has been some deep pain and some betrayal.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I totally agree with everything you all said. And just adding, we have a practice called the Conscious Sensual Awareness Partner Practice, which is really about enhancing and celebrating our sensual connection, which may lead into some sexy time, but it's really about focusing on enriching our senses together as a couple. And again, as like Karen said, connecting beyond the intellect, connecting neurobiologically. I love that, Karen. I like that big word. So for you listeners out there, we do have this conscious sensual awareness exercise as a PDF available for you. And if you go to our website, authentictantra.com, and sign up for your Sex as Medicine tips or Sex is Medicine tips every week, we will send them to you with this episode. And if you listen to this episode a year from now and you want this PDF, you want this conscious sensual awareness practice PDF, just email us at connect@authentictantra.com. Say, I heard Davey talking about this on that radio show, and we will send it to you for free. It is our little free gift for you. It's an exercise that I designed while I was writing Shake Your Soul Song. It's highly effective, highly sensual, juicy and delicious, and deeply connective. So go to authentictantra.com, sign up for Sex as Medicine tips, and we will make sure that this gets out to you in our weekly newsletter for you. Yay. Okay. Well, that unfortunately is all the time that we have today. We do have more questions, but they're going to have to wait until next episode, my friends, which is only a few short weeks away. Make sure that you continue sending us your questions because we love answering them, and you get to benefit from the wisdom of all of us lovely dakinis, not just one, not just two, but 4 or 5, depending on the day. And then you can, of course, stay connected with me and Sex is Medicine at authentictantra.com and Sex is Medicine on YouTube. And where can people get a hold of you, all my friends? Once again, we'll start with you, Miss Karen Craig.
ExploreTantra.com. So my husband, Brian, and I, who's also an authentic Tantra, certified authentic Tantra practitioner, we have our own practice, and then we both teach through the Institute. So you can reach us through the Institute as well.
And we're very delighted to have you as instructors. Very fortunate. How about you, Lucia? How can people get a hold of you?
Sure. Yeah. My website is embodied elements with a -wp.com, or you can also just Google my name, Lucia Vasquez, and all of the social medias will just pop up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lucia. And how about you, Rosie Bits?
rosiebits.com, or just Google Rosie Bits and you will find me.
Woohoo! All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our wonderful panel. Thank you to our wonderful audience. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode, or I look forward to being in your ears for our next episode. And then we'll see you next month for another Ask a Sexologist. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful week. Much love. You've been listening to Sex is Medicine with Devi Ward Erickson, your #1 resource for holistic sex education. You can listen to and subscribe to Sex is Medicine on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Just search Sex is Medicine with Devi Ward. Stay connected with me and my guests on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Authentic Tantra, and learn how you can use Tantra as medicine to heal, awaken, and empower every area of your life at AuthenticTantra.com. Make sure to tune in to Sex is Medicine every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific on Contact Talk Radio Network, and join our watch party every Thursday evening on Facebook at Authentic Tantra. We look forward to you joining us next week for another episode of Sex is Medicine with Devi Ward.